Pittsburgh Steelers fans, it is time for another edition of the Steelers Postgame Show following the Pittsburgh Steelers 36-28 defeat to the Minnesota Vikings. My name is Michael Beck, joined with Dave Schofield from BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Dave, what are your initial reactions to that Steelers comeback? They made things interesting in that game. I didn't think they would.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you got a little bit ahead of yourself. You were so ready to say it so quickly. It was 36-28. They did get that those other 8 points. Don't forget that last digit in there.
Ooh, sorry.
I was too mad. I was too mad to get excited. Do you know what I'm saying? I was too mad to get excited. I was so mad that I'm like, you had to play this terrible to put yourself in such a bad situation that no matter what you do with this amazing comeback, it's not going to be enough because you sucked it up for 40 minutes and then you were completely dominant for 20. You weren't the better team the whole game. Very frustrating. And I mean, part of me, honestly, if they'd have won that game, I still would have been mad. I'd have been mad because you can't do that in the NFL, to come out and be that bad, even though it showed that they had some fight. Why didn't you have that fight the whole game? You were playing so uninspired for so long. So in case you're wondering, my knee jerk is a little bit of a rant. But I mean, my goodness. I mean, can you play more than a half? Play more than a half. I mean, it seems like it's all on, we'll just wait till the fourth quarter and try to win games. Last week you came through on the final seconds. This week you didn't. That's what's going to happen when you wait that long to actually play football.
Tyler W. puts $2 in the tip jar, says this season summed up in a single game. You know what? I tend to agree on that statement. The Steelers just completely fallen asleep for a number of quarters and then kind of coming alive. They're still 500, I guess, but man, that was tough. First of all, Dave, would you consider that first 3 quarters of football some of the worst Pittsburgh Steelers football you've ever seen?
Yeah, I'm breaking it into thirds because the last 5 minutes of the third quarter wasn't as bad. That's when they got back into it. So 60 minutes, you're breaking it up where the last 20 minutes was fine. So the first 2/3, it was just uninspiring. Completely. They had no answers on defense. They had no heart. They had no heart on offense. You can't complain that they didn't try to make adjustments. Obviously, they tried to make adjustments. Now, I know some people were complaining and they're like, oh, what do you know when they go no huddle? Or say, if you try to run no huddle the entire game, it's not going to work when you need it to. It's no huddle in the NFL, especially on a short week, in my opinion. To do it the whole game wasn't going to work. Now, it worked when they needed it to. To me, that's not the answer. The answer is just playing good, sound, solid football the whole time. And it just took them. I mean, I don't want to make excuses. They looked like a road team on a Thursday. Exactly what you were saying. Like it took them that long to get warmed up. And you can't do that and expect to win games in the NFL.
Shield 91 kind of sums up what we've been saying as well. He puts $10 in the super chat feature. He says, joke of a team. That's pretty harsh. No one can convince me. Otherwise, it takes 3 quarters for this team to wake up almost every game. Glad there is no more games for 10 more days. Need a break from this team. Dave, would you agree with that? Do you need a break from the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Honestly, I understand. And the thing is, you have a big almost comeback. To me, I was even thinking it would have been typical Steelers if they would have even scored the touchdown and then done a ridiculously ineffective 2-point conversion, like the first attempt at a 2-point conversion, if you know what I mean. So that's what I was kind of expecting. And they almost had the opportunity to do that. It's just, I'm so glad they fought their way back in it because if anything else, it shows you that the type of team you're capable of being. But I'm not going to let the most recent thing dictate my thoughts. I'm not going to give you a pass because you had a really great last 20 minutes. I'm going to say, if you're really that good for those last 20 minutes, then why aren't you showing it for all 40? End of story for me.
Oh, exactly. You don't see teams like the New England Patriots under Bill
Mhm.
Belichick ever come out flat for that long and then flip a switch. It just doesn't happen. The team typically goes the whole game. It's one of the weird things about the season, how much momentum this team has. But I do want to talk about the first 2-point conversion. For me
Yeah.
personally, I like the call. That way, at least you know what you have to do the rest of the game, whether or not you get the 2 points or you don't. The play call was terrible, but I've seen some debate back and forth over this. Where do you kind of fall on the fence on going for 2 earlier in the game or kicking the extra point?
I was actually thinking about that before they scored. And I know KT Smith chimed in the Slack channel. He's like, "Oh no, you keep yourself in that one score game as long as possible." I agree. In that from that aspect. But I also can see the other side. If you think you have a good play and you've got the momentum, do it. The thing is that wasn't a good play. That's the thing that takes all ways. You didn't have a good play that you ran. But at least you know what you're looking against. If you know you're going to need 2 scores, you know it when there's time to get 2 scores. Because think about it. If when they didn't get it and they were down 9, then they were down 9. If you get the ball back then and you get down and you're forced with like a 4th and 9 at the 22, you don't feel like you have to, if you're down 8 or down 7, you're going to be going for that. If you're down 9, you're kicking the field goal and living to play a little bit longer, knowing that you need the 2 scores. I can see the reasoning behind it. I don't think that's a set thing that you should do definitely going into like, oh, well, you always got to do this, you always got to do that. That's more of a feeling the flow, gut feeling of the game call. I don't have a problem with it. I understand. I mean, if they would have converted, it would have been like, oh, what a brilliant call. I could see it either way, and that's one of those you just have to go for your feel. What did you think of that?
Of the call itself, or
no, of the decision to go for 2 in that moment, not necessarily. Not the play call, because that was terrible. The play call was terrible.
Yeah, if it's me, I like the decision the team went in. I like it because at least you know what you have to do the rest of the game. It's great extending the game, maybe put a little bit more pressure on the opposition. And to a degree, you don't have too many 2-point plays in your playbook on any given week. I know the Steelers have said they had as many as 10 in the past, but really that isn't something you keep a ton of on the call sheet. So in that sense, I can understand why people wouldn't want to call it in case you have to do it over and over. I think one of the things that it will kind of get glossed over because it happened so early in the game is Chris Boswell missing that field goal, that 49-yarder.
Yeah.
Seems like he only makes 50 plus this year, but Boswell missing that kick really put some pressure on the Steelers there late in the game. They definitely could have used that momentum. But talking about big plays, of course, the last play of the game, Ben Roethlisberger, a dime of a throw, one of the best of his career in the clutch between 2 defenders, perfectly in Farmy's hands. He kind of gets it onto his chest before Harrison Smith punches it out and ends the game. Do you put any blame on the rookie there? Is that the moment too big for him, or would you expect a veteran to hold on to a pass like that?
That was a great defensive play that still the offensive guy could have come up with it. It's not like he dropped it or anything like that when he should have had it. The defense made a good play. So obviously we're all bummed that he couldn't bring it in. It would have been a really nice catch to still come down with it that strong whenever it was getting he had a guy. Was it 2 or 3 guys hitting him at that time? Honestly,
3 guys. Yeah.
It was either 3 guys hitting him or 2 guys hitting him and 1 guy standing there close that almost got the ball. I mean, what a fantastic throw! Can't even believe the throw got there. Boy, I mean, that was my God. I mean, that was vintage Ben Roethlisberger with that throw. It's crazy. You can't put it all on that play, and I'm not going to criticize him one bit. Could he have caught it? Sure. Was it a great play by the defense? An even better play by the defense? Absolutely. Should the Steelers have been in that situation where they needed that play right there? No way, because they blew it for 40 minutes.
Now, speaking of rookies here as well, Steel Dog 88 puts $5 in the tip jar. Says player of the game for me was Najee Harris. No quit in that kid. 100% agree on that statement. I believe Harris also went over the Steelers rookie record for total yards. what do you think of his performance and his rookie year as a whole right now? Because he's been doing some things even when the Steelers struggle.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there wasn't much offense early on other than him. And still having that threat. I mean, I still feel like he kind of kept them. He kind of got him into that comeback mode, not even necessarily just with the touchdowns, but still being able to run the ball and rip off some bigger plays. It kind of got the Steelers. It's what started them back into the game, but he ended up with, on the rushing side, 94 yards on 20 carries, 1 rushing touchdown, and then he added 3 receptions for 10 yards with 1 receiving touchdown. So 2 total touchdowns and 104 total yards from scrimmage for the rookie. I mean, that's a bright spot. That really is. And to me, it wasn't like he was out there playing ho-hum early and then came on strong. He's one of the few that I felt that was, giving it all, when from the opening whistle, and it just didn't have much help until late in the game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Here, I'm going to read out a couple more super chats here really quick. First more? From Tyler W. Puts $2 in tip jar, says thank God for Witherspoon. Wow. Yes, of course, he came up with 2 interceptions. I'd like to get into him more in the second half, kind of focus more so on the defense in the second half of the show. But that leads me into this super chat from Monster19, who puts $1.99 in the tip jar. Says
Don't get me started there.
Needs a reality check.
Okay.
This is a tale of 2 halves. I do want to talk about Chase Claypool because a boneheaded first half. He played terribly. One of the worst halves of football you could imagine out of a player. Comes back in the second half, nearly puts up 100 yards, and plays decent, except at the very end of the game, his last catch, he's standing there pointing downfield, wasting more time. It just ebbs and flows with this guy. What do you think is going on with Chase Claypool? Does he need to take a seat on the bench for a game, or can the Steelers coaching staff get him roped in?
I don't know what to do with Chase Claypool. It seemed like it almost seemed like they were rotating series with him in Washington. They weren't keeping Claypool out there the whole time. I don't know if that's the toe or if that's just a reality check for him, but he's so darn talented. But my goodness, grow the crap up. Okay. The penalty, stupid. He was, on second down trying to lunge for a first down, and I can't believe that got overturned. It just didn't look like it was going to get overturned. They had to really zoom it in to show that he was down, and I guess he was. That was not good. There was something else in there that he did that I even put it on Twitter, and I can't even remember what it was. That in a sequence there that was just not good. Do you remember what the third thing was in the first half, Michael?
The third boneheaded thing, there was the block. He had the whiff block on third.
Right after that, he comes out and completely misses the block and gets Najee blown up in the backfield. But to come up when the clock is running and you have no timeouts and you're under a minute, and to do a first down pose, and the veteran Trey Turner comes over and rips the ball away from you to take it to the official, and then the ball gets knocked and it's rolling around and they finally get it set. Claypool Turner was mad, like he was mad at Turner. Okay, Turner was bailing you out. He was bailing you out. And if you're going to get mad at him, stop posing. Celebrate after you spike the ball. I still, on the first Witherspoon interception, I didn't like the end zone pose. When you're down that much, you don't go pose in the end zone. That was, I didn't even know that was in there. Go ahead and read
this up from Ryan O'Toole, who puts $5 in the tip jar, which fits perfectly right now. Was anyone else annoyed by the defense that posed for the first interception in the end zone when the Steelers, I believe, were still down about 22 points at that point?
It was a good bit, yeah.
I think it was 29-7 at that point.
Yeah. And since I was already talking about it, yes, that was annoying. And, it's just sometimes it's like, think about this for a second. Think about what's going on. Really, is it really that much about you at that point? I mean, not just the end zone celebration, but even the Claypool coming up and going on and signaling a first down. The clock is running. You have no time. I mean, think about that. If he doesn't do that, that play to Freiermuth that got knocked away is the next to last play of the game. Not the last play of the game. It wasn't like it was fourth down or anything there. They just didn't have any more time. And it's because you wanted to pose for a first down. So I have more problem with that than I do Freiermuth, getting the ball knocked away. He was trying to make a play and another football player was making a good play too. There was no reason for Claypool to try to pose there and cost valuable seconds.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the biggest, I don't know, I don't want to offend him too much or say anything too bad, but that was one of probably the biggest boneheaded plays I've seen in football, maybe ever, to waste time like that. But this is a good super chat from Tyler W as well. He puts $5 in the tip jar. Says these Steelers may kill me, but not today, Satan. Okay.
Hopefully I get to meet Tyler W. in the next Steelers game because we're both going to be there. Yeah, and some people were saying we went live right away because this is a late game. So we didn't get to catch Mike Tomlin's press conference like we normally try to do before we go on for the postgame show. Apparently, Tomlin did say that that Claypool was basically benched. Was Joe Schobert benched for a while? Buddy Johnson was out there.
Allen, yeah, he was out there. Marcus Allen was out there.
Yeah, well, Marcus Allen was the dime backer, which didn't really seem to work very well.
No, he struggled. Especially Dalvin Cook worked him late in the game. Gave the Steelers even less time and no timeouts. As a matter of fact, I guess if they stopped them there, they probably don't burn any of their timeouts, or maybe one. Give themselves 3 minutes, 30 seconds, a pair of timeouts, a 2-minute warning. But that was a brutal spot from the linebackers. And the guy from the Texans just released the linebacker that costs like the team that signed no money, ends up going to Houston. I think it's Zach Cunningham.
Tennessee. Yeah.
Tennessee got him. Yeah. Who's later in the waiver order, which with how the Steelers linebackers have struggled.
I'll be honest with you. You want to know the truth with that? That probably had everything to do with the Steelers playing a Thursday. And you'd have to give up a spot on the 53-man roster for this game and blah, blah, blah. And it was a lot to do. I don't know if they were interested or not, but having a Thursday game made that more difficult to try to do it.
Yeah, and if you're benching Joe Schobert, then then maybe you start thinking of stuff like that. But man, we are getting later and later on in the season here. Steel Dog 88 puts $5 in the tip jar as well. Need to drill it in his head. This being Chase Claypool. Clock does not stop on a first down like in college. Is there any excuse because he's a sophomore player? He should know better. Like, am I wrong in saying this? A second-year player should know your clock's running regardless of picking up a first down? Yeah,
just like he knows you got to get 2 feet down rather than one. And don't pull the infamous Plaxico Burress to where you didn't, early in his career, where this might be before your time, Michael. I forget how young you are, where he didn't realize
the fumble.
Where he wasn't, just because he was on the ground doesn't mean that you're down in the NFL like he does in college, and comes up and puts the ball down. And that was bad. But things like they're not at this point. He should know that already. But it comes, even with everything else, just think of where the Steelers would have been if they didn't give up the one bomb there late in the game. Yeah. That one touchdown. Because if you don't have that going on there, you're not fighting for 8 points there at the end. You're just trying to get into field goal range. So I mean, it was such a bad blowout that you didn't even realize that a play in a blowout that would seem like it didn't matter, how much it matters now when you see how close this game ended up becoming. That's about all I can say. Blah.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe the game as a whole as well. Blah. But Occam's Ox puts $4.99 in the tip jar, and he brings up a point I want to get into as well. He says it's weird being both disgusted and impressed with the effort. Ben was getting pulverized and zero help and almost pulled it off. Immaturity cost them big in this one.
Yes, it did.
Ben Roethlisberger was getting his head taken off in the first half, and it really kind of rolled over into the third quarter. I was starting to call like, hey, maybe we need to get this guy out of the game. Like, Ben Roethlisberger is seriously getting beat up, and I saw that a lot online. Obviously, the Steelers come back, so obviously the smart call not to pull him. But what did you think of Ben Roethlisberger taking those repeated shots, play after play? It felt like, especially when they were just rolling 3-and-outs back to back to back to back.
Sorry, I was reading a breaking news story that doesn't have anything to do with the Steelers. That former Denver Broncos wide receiver Demaryius Thomas passed away at age 33. Sorry, that's just that Brian Anthony Davis hit us up with that. So back to your question. What was your question?
First of all, rest in peace to Demaryius Thomas, of course. Rose the Steelers in that wild card game. 33 years old. That is terrible. Yeah. But getting back into the game itself here, like what I was asking you was Ben Roethlisberger getting beat up so frequently early in that game to the point where a lot of people were calling for him to perhaps get benched just for his own health and safety because the O-line struggles. Mm-hmm. What do you think of the Steelers' kind of decision to keep him in and the O-line as a whole with how much they struggled early in this game?
That just goes to show how much more the Steelers coaching staff knows than Steelers fans. Because was that game over? Obviously not. Obviously it wasn't, because the Steelers were at the 12-yard line and the ones as throwing the ball into the end zone as time expires in a one-score game. So the game wasn't over. So when fans are thinking, oh man, we should get Ben out of here, this is just a blowout, this is just too much. You know what? It wasn't. They still had a chance. I wouldn't have bet on that chance. But you still don't take someone out when hey, it's at least possible we could claw our way back into it. When you're down, if they would have still been down 29 points with 10 minutes left in the game rather than 20, that might have been a little bit different story, because then it's just really not possible. But that's just me. So the fact that they stuck with them kind of shows you how wise it was. And some people were I saw somewhere in the live chat as I scrolled through trying to find the next super chat that they said, well, what about Najee Harris not knowing that there was a tie? He's a rookie. Chase Claypool's a second-year player. There is a difference there. The rookies, sometimes you don't always expect them to know, like maybe if it would have been last year and Chase Claypool might not have realized that the clock didn't stop on a first down. That's one thing. This is his second year. You should know by now.
Exactly. Now, we do have a couple super chats to throw up here. Ox again, $1.99 says, stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself. And then also we have down here from Lewis Damper, we have a couple. We're all thinking it 1L closer to hashtag pick it.
I am so tired of people talking about wanting a better, including you, Michael Beck, wanting a better draft pick. That is not what you're playing for right now. That's not what you know who's playing for that right now? The Detroit Lions, because they don't have a mathematical chance to make it. Okay. That's not what it's all about. When we can start talking about that, start talking to me about that in the middle of January. Then we can start talking about that.
Totally fair. And the reason why I brought up, and when I did, the Steelers were getting beat worse than I've ever seen them get.
That's true.
And
no, you're right, because you have to think of this team and how they're playing. Is this all we're going to get from them? And then what they show you the last 20 minutes is what they're capable of. And you're like, if this team is capable of this, if you'll actually come out and play this way, I'm sorry, even dropping this game to Minnesota, if you could do what you're capable of doing, you can beat any team. They just don't do it. So the thing is, is it likely the Steelers are going to make the playoffs? I'm going to say no. Is it possible? Yeah, they could win their final 4 games. And if they do, look out. They're going to be any team that wins their last 4 games going to the playoffs. That's the team you want to look for and what they're going to do. But do I have any confidence that they're going to win all 4 of them? Not right now, but as I keep saying, you don't have to win all 4 of them. They have to win the next one first. So it's not out of the question, but it's just they've backed themselves into a corner, and they, in my opinion, they can't lose another one from here on out.
Yeah, they got Titans at home next week. Then they're going to Kansas City. Then Cleveland's coming to Pittsburgh, and then you end the year in Baltimore. I wouldn't go as far as to say a murderer's row of opponents, but it's not necessarily getting any easier. But let's load up this super chat here from Andrew Palladino. He puts $9.99 in the tip jar. Thank you for that, Andrew. He says, having a hard time understanding the difference between halves this year. Almost like we're sending 2 different teams out there. We held the Ravens to a total of 100 ground yards. What is going on? Dalvin Cook, I believe, had over 100 rushing yards in the first quarter, I think.
He had over 200 in the game.
Yeah. So like
most given up to one running back all season, from what I understand.
absolutely
Ugh.
ridiculous from a Steelers defense that features the amount of
Mhm.
talent that they do have. But yeah, no, this Jekyll and Hyde is not something the Steelers can like continue to do. Would you blame this on coaching? Is this a way they just they set up their games that they start slow, or what could you think it's going to be? Because this is a trend that's continued for multiple weeks in a row here.
When it comes to starting slow overall, like week in and week out, and sorry if my dog's going crazy. She's wondering why in the world I'm not in bed. If you're talking about that, I'm going to put the blame on that. I'm going to say there's nobody that's not responsible for that. That's a double negative. Everybody's responsible for that. Okay. Nobody gets a pass for not being ready to play, between the players, the coaches, and everything else. To me, seeing what I saw early in this game is there was some things that were just flat up. Like, how can no one block a defensive lineman and let him come flying through to get the sack? It's one thing that if you're not picking up the blitzing linebacker, but the one time it was literally the guy lined up and down on the line of scrimmage. Everyone just parted and let him go. To me, that's almost, people aren't going to like this. They're really not going to like this one. But to me, that's almost goes to show that the coaches didn't have the chance to do everything they normally would in a week to make sure everything's together. So I don't know if people are going to like that or not, to say, hey, maybe what this team really needs is more time getting coached up each week. And when you didn't have that, they started off being in trouble. But I mean, you can't only play well when you're in desperation mode. Well, maybe you can, because guess what? They need to be in desperation mode every minute of every game for the rest of the season now. So maybe that's when they'll play well, because that's when they did today. What do you think when it comes to the coaches and the responsibility? I'm going to turn it right back, because I've really, so many times Jeff will ask a question and sometimes he gets a pass from having to answer it. So I just want to make sure you get it as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, it definitely makes things a huge challenge. I've never, obviously not coached at the NFL level and had to prepare for a Thursday night, but I've heard things from people where the prep from those games, you have to start it like on Friday before the Sunday game, and like actually start the prep before you've even played the game before your Thursday night game. So like that becomes a huge challenge, especially against a divisional opponent, and a game the Steelers had to win against the Ravens to just completely throw everything aside to focus on the Vikings game. I don't know how possible that was. So, of course, the Steelers only got, one practice in before playing this game. So, I am not surprised that they came out flat, because, again, being the road team on Thursday night, like, I think you have a 20% success rate. I think that's what it boils down to. Road teams typically don't win on Thursday night.
Except in 2021. The road teams were actually 9-6 coming into this one.
Yeah, no, it's wild how it has been going. But
but they've also, more of them have been favorites than even that. The NFL has set it up this year almost like they don't want it to seem like the road teams are always at a disadvantage. So they'll line up and do something like Buffalo at the Jets, or I don't know if that's really a matchup or not, but they'll take games that would have been, if that teams would have been favored on the road anyway, and they throw them on Thursday nights. So you can't talk about, all the road teams are so disadvantaged. If you really go back, look at those matchups, look at the road teams with some of them, but some of them were also like on Thanksgiving, all three road teams won. But except for this year, generally I say that big advantage to the home team. But it's not 29-0 to start the game advantage. It's not that bad, in my opinion.
No, absolutely. Now, we're approaching the halfway part of our show. Before we get there, I want to read out a couple super chats. We got a few lined up here. First from Kaz, puts $4.99 in the tip jar. Says, I expected the Steelers to get that TD with 3 seconds left. I'm not even mad. The heart and talent is there, just not the timing or consistency. Yeah, consistency is a huge issue for this team. Dave Kesey puts $5 in the tip jar. Says there are a few teams out there that always play for the next draft pick. Those teams don't have trophies. Go Steelers. Hey, and you know what? I know I've been someone that said, like, hey, like, this team's starting to lose here. Of course, you want to boost your draft pick as much as you possibly can once you are eliminated. at this point, the Steelers pretty much have to go at least 3-1 for any chance to make the playoffs. I don't think 2-2 is getting you in.
I don't even know if 3-1 will get you in. Well, I don't know. I mean, things would really have to fall your way.
Absolutely. And like 4-0, I suppose, like, funny enough, like the Steelers could like completely miss at 3-1, but they could win the division at 4-0 just with the way things are falling out, but they need a lot of help now. And then this one here from Brad Jewett as well, who puts $4.99 in the tip jar, says the loss sucks. I'm mad too. Are we not going to recognize the fight to come back down 29? This has been a critique fest so far, but to be fair, Brad, the Steelers played a terrible game of football, and I don't feel satisfied by that comeback, and I think Dave also agrees in that sentiment. It just how poorly they played. It was some of the sloppiest football I've seen in my life. Would you agree with that, Dave?
I mean, I know Troy Aikman's not, former NFL quarterback. He's not always the most insightful dude out there calling games, but he was completely right saying, look at the size of these holes throughout the whole first half. It was like there was no, like, so much space on the line of scrimmage whenever they were handing the ball off. I mean, what was up with that? Were they taking extra wide splits or something? It seemed like they were so spread out and so much space. You can't have those big of holes on defense and expect to make stops. I mean, if this game would have stayed competitive throughout, it probably would have finished with a bigger margin of victory. It's the fact that the Minnesota got up so much and kind of started playing not to lose, because that's what's happened to them so many times, where they almost did again.
Okay, we should jump in our quick break here. We got some more super chats and more Steelers stuff to get into. We'll get into a little bit of positivity. Sure, why not, in the second half of the show, and break down some of the defensive side. But you are listening to the Steelers postgame show from BTSC. If you're watching on YouTube and Facebook, hang tight. If you're listening on the audio platform side, click over to part 2 right now. Alrighty, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, it is time for the second half of the BTSC Steelers postgame show. The Steelers come up just short in an 8-point loss. They were driving to come back against the Minnesota Vikings. They couldn't get it done. I'm Michael Beck, joined with Dave Schofield. Right off the top, let's load up another super chat here, getting a ton of these throughout today's show. Firstly, from Occam's Ox again, puts $4.99 in the tip jar, says it was a team effort, and it definitely took us all working together to lose this one. Doug Sir Swish Remmer, 29 points, 300 yards in the first half. Yikes. Was it 29 points all in the first half?
I don't think it was all in the first half. Give me just a second. Because it was 23. It was in the first half. It was 29 in the third quarter until the Steelers finally scored.
Right. Here's another one from Evgeny Crosby, puts $1.99 tip jar, says, where was Witherspoon 5 weeks ago? He was a healthy scratch. He wasn't very good, and Joe Hayden was healthy. But okay, let's get into Witherspoon a little bit here. Of course, he gets 2 interceptions. He played pretty good last week. I wouldn't say he played great this week. I know lining up against Justin Jefferson is going to make anyone look foolish. I know the Osgood or Osman, like the other receiver that the Vikings had, he made a few guys look silly as well today. But what do you think of Ahkello Witherspoon? Is he starting to put some stuff together?
I mean, he made 2 big splash plays in this game. I don't know that he was locking it down the entire rest of the game, because I'll be honest with you, that's not my unless they're throwing the ball towards someone, that's usually not my focus. I'm generally watching what the O-line and D-line are doing, so I don't want to break it down that much. If someone said, oh wow, he was terrible except for those 2 plays, I wouldn't be able to disagree with him, but I didn't see that he was. I thought that he was doing just fine, and then you can't discount the 2 splash plays. Like I said, I wasn't a fan of the celebration of the first one, but that's not what you're getting from your other corners right there. And maybe it's not the El Busto trade that some Steelers fans were thinking right away. It just took time and opportunity. And if nothing else, he's taking advantage of the opportunity. So kudos to him for now saying, hey, do we really want to take him off the field?
Joseph Brown here puts a 99-cent super sticker in the. I've never seen one of these before.
Yeah,
so I'm a little bit.
It's like it's a frowny, almost cry face. I have to
All
look
right.
it. I have to actually look it up on my phone because it doesn't come up right on StreamYard.
It didn't show. That's too bad. But thank you for that, Joseph. We do have another super chat here from Sean S. Percy Harvin. I'm thinking he means Presley Harvin. Marcus Allen and Cam Sutton hurt us all game. Akilo and Minkah saved us. Big Ben yelled at Tomlin and took over the play calling. I don't know.
Now, so many people say this about Big Ben's play calling. Even in no huddle doesn't mean that he's calling the plays. It could mean that he's calling the plays, but it doesn't have to mean he's calling the plays. Remember, the offensive coordinator can talk to the quarterback up until 15 seconds remaining on the play clock. That could still be, and it might even say, hey, set the formation. And then as they line it up, he might be able to say, hey, it looks like you're going to have blah, 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 blah. And it might be that, or it might be silent. We don't know. We assume it, but you just don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So just remember that. That's just something that to keep in mind.
There's a couple things I want to dig into this super chat as well. Firstly, Presley Harvin III. Yeah, I'd say he lost the punting duel against old Jordan Berry. Yeah. He was having a career year. Jeffrey Benedict brought this up on Know Your Enemy on Wednesday night. It seems like maybe it's Heinz Field. We always talk about kickers struggling in Heinz Field. What about the punters? So Presley Harvin, of course, they're in the Dome tonight. He loses that battle. That one really sucked. But Minkah Fitzpatrick, he had a great game, in my opinion. Like there was obviously some spots where like kind of iffy. Like the penalty, I think, was absolutely ridiculous. He was tackling guys when it seemed like no one else wanted to tackle Dalvin Cook, and he was the best player probably through the first three quarters when the Steelers were absolutely putrid. Would you agree with that? Did Minkah Fitzpatrick impress you tonight, Dave?
I liked what you did, and I know earlier. People were discussing, hey, how bad was that penalty? What's nice is that penalty didn't change anything. That ended up being a field goal anyway. So the defense stopped him there because that was a bad call. It did look bad live, and it didn't look, and you saw on replay that it wasn't. The biggest thing that even put the Steelers in the situation that they were is that they wisely waved off the flag on that third down play. Oh, yeah. He made a really good defensive play there. And it was going to be called a penalty. So I thought from everything that I saw, I like what Minkah Fitzpatrick did. I bet you anything he gets roasted for the what was it, a 29-yard touchdown, that run early on where there was nobody that came anywhere close to Cook. You're like, well, where's your safety on that? No, he couldn't get over there. That one, I'm not sure about exactly where he was or what he was doing. If that was on him or if that was something where he was playing within what he was supposed to do. But other than maybe that, I thought Minkah had a very solid game.
Pierre Blackwell throws another super chat up. He says, great way to battle back. Seemed like there was no game plan in the first half. Glad to see Buddy out there. Why was Marcus Allen out there? What are your thoughts on the Steelers' reserve linebackers, inside linebackers playing? And we'll get into the outside guys in a moment.
That was this game saw the first snaps on defense of any inside linebacker this season, not named Devin Bush, Joe Schobert, or Robert Spillane. Last week when Spillane was out, they only played the other two the whole game. That was Marcus Allen's first snaps. That was Buddy Johnson's first snaps. I didn't see UG3 out there at all. Did you? I didn't see him.
I saw him dressed. I didn't.
He hasn't. Yeah, he was. I saw him on special teams, but not on defense. So I can't say for sure that he got any snaps or didn't. But none of those guys had any snaps on defense all season. They were going with the other linebackers. What they try to do with Marcus Allen, I don't blame them for trying. At least it's the whole notion of, if we keep trying to do the same thing and it's not working, what do we expect? They tried something. It didn't work. He didn't, he came through and was it a draw that was a big run to Cook early on? And he was basically going to be in charge of him coming out of the backfield. And he got caught on the wrong side of the blockers and Cook busted for a big run. That pass play late that we talked about, he really struggled. Buddy Johnson, I noticed his number out there when they were lining up, but when the plays actually went down, I didn't notice him. And that could be good or that could be bad. So I'm not saying he did anything outstanding, but I didn't see anything that he did that like when you saw Marcus Allen that was a negative.
Flipping over to the outside linebackers now. TJ Watt, early in this game, obviously he exited with the groin injury. Alex Highsmith later on exited with a knee injury, I believe, or knee/hip. But TJ Watt looked like he was not playing 100% at all through the beginning of this game. He was barely taking steps into offensive tackles. It looked like he was playing hurt, which is just brutal. We've missed this guy so many times this year, and we know what kind of a difference maker he is when he's up and going. But what did you think of Taco Charlton and Derek Tuska, who pretty much played the whole game because of these injuries?
Well, they played the entire second half, that's for sure. I mean, did Highsmith, was he even out there to start the second half, or was it early? I know I wrote the article in the second half. I wasn't sure at what point he came out. But they were out there a lot. Let's just say they weren't out there when they were gaining 300 yards. It wasn't just those two when they were gaining 300 yards in the first half. You know, at the time where the Steelers defense was actually making some stops, it's when those guys were out there. So you could always go with the infamous Mike Tomlin, he didn't kill us line if you wanted to. Did you notice anything out of the ordinary or extra special or bad about them?
I thought Taco Charlton was getting close and putting heat on Kirk Cousins. He
got
looked
held.
Like he did. I don't think he was ever called.
No, the one they called that put him in that was on Taco. And I think he might have got him if they wouldn't have held him.
Yeah.
But they never got Cousins all night.
No right. Sacks. Yeah. No, the second sack streak dies again.
Yes.
Twice this year. Oh, well, that's a story of the past. But yeah, no, there's nothing that really jumped off the paper with them. I think they played better than they have in prior weeks. It sucks watching Quincy Roche go off for the Giants and Jameer Jones obviously not being in town and Melvin Ingram stepping up for the Chiefs. It sucks with all the injuries the outside linebackers have had, and the Steelers having actual depth at the spot early on in the year, and then all these guys aren't on the team anymore. That stinks. But there's another super chat here that I really want to get to because we kind of ran out of time in the first half to get to it. From Steel Dog 88, puts $2 in the tip jar, says, let's not forget about Kendrick Green snapping. Yeah. My God, has this gotten bad. He has been terrible snapping the football pretty much ever since the Detroit Lions game. It was iffy all year, but now it seems like every snap is a shotgun buckshot or bird shot. You don't know where it's going to go. It could be high. It could be your feet. It could be 6 feet to your left. It could be at the running back. What is going on with this guy?
I thought the snaps tonight looked harder, if you know what I mean. I thought that he was firing them back there more than before. Maybe I just didn't notice them being like that before. But like the one play that was supposed to be a run, and because they bobbled the snap, Ben Roethlisberger actually completed the pass, but got called. They called it on Chooks. He's going to get credited for the penalty, but I think there was 3 linemen downfield on that one because it was supposed to be a run play. I don't know that was a bad snap or that Ben just didn't handle it right. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, it was I mean, yeah. We didn't see those kind of look like snaps we saw last year. If you know what I mean. So not great. Something would be really nice to improve on, if you know what I mean. I don't think that's what cost the Steelers the game. I mean, I've not at the professional level. I've seen games where offenses could only run half their plays because the other half they had bad snaps. You know, I've seen a game go down like that, and it's just sad. But yeah, they got 10 days off now. That might be something they want to work on a little bit.
It wasn't just that, too. Kendrick Green, for whatever reason, delay game penalties. I know the Steelers kind of jumped sometimes early as the clock expired. He probably should have 3 or 4 penalties. I know that they end up on the quarterback, but they really all should have landed on Green's head. It looked like Ben was yelling at him a lot after taking a couple of those nasty sacks. Honestly, it's probably the worst game I've seen of his throughout his early career. Would it be too crazy? I know he's a rookie. I'm already of the opinion that if you can find a guy to replace him in the offseason, I am definitely already starting to think in the direction of being for it and pushing him to perhaps being in that BJ Finney interior 3 backup role. That's really the level I've kind of got. I've soured on Kendrick Green a lot as this year's gone on. Do you think that's ridiculous? Is that too soon to kind of be selling on a rookie? I just think he's been playing so poorly in pretty much every facet.
I think it's too soon. I do, just because I would, I'd say I'd like to give him that offseason. Jeffrey Bennett brought up a really good idea. He's like, he's a little bit undersized. He needs more work with his hands. He needs better hand placement and to come a little bit more naturally. I don't know if that's going to get better going to guard. Do you think that gets better going to guard?
I don't think so, because he's even smaller to be a guard. Like center, you can be smaller as a center.
So,
it works to a degree.
But my thing is if you need, let's just say this. I hate talking about the draft while the season's still going on, but when the draft comes around, if what you need and what you're looking for, if it falls on you that it's actually a center and not a guard, then you consider doing that because you have other options, because that Green could do that. Do you feel like you have to go looking for a center? I'm not sure. That's something they need to evaluate when they go back and look at the whole season and the trajectory from there. It's not out of the question. I'll just say that.
Hey, more games like what we saw today out of Kendrick Green, the consistency, I don't think that would be a question at all.
Mm-hmm.
Let's throw up a few more super chats here. First from Wes Seacock, puts $2 in tip jar, says maybe Sutton should spend less time on Twitter.
I don't know what that's in reference to. Do you, Mr. Social Media?
I don't really see Cam Sutton tweeting a lot, actually.
I was going.
I might have to click on his profile after the show. So sorry about that, Wes. I can't really comment on that. But what did you think of Sutton's game as a whole here?
He had a few nice plays. He almost had an interception early on that wide receiver screen break.
It might have been a touchdown.
Yeah, but he also. Let's just say this. When he has to be your best corner, you're in trouble. He's better as your number 2 corner, because when he has to be the number 1 corner and he's having to go after guys like Justin Jefferson, he's going to you have to win every battle, because if you lose one, you're going to give up a big play and possibly a touchdown. And he didn't, and he's lost too many battles.
Yeah, it was like a whole thing throughout that entire cornerback spot. It was just you miss Joe Hayden. It's huge. It's an area of need in the offseason. Like personally, I'm still of the opinion that Joe Hayden can still go. If he wants 3 years, then that okay. I mean, he's
got to get back on the field this year in order to do anything else.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that's what it comes down to.
We'll have to wait and see there. But kicking things inside, I know we talked a little bit about some of the other linebackers, but one of the guys that's drawn the ire of Steelers fans all year long, and Andrew Filipponi, of course, is jumping down his neck again, calling him the worst draft pick of all time. Devin Bush, what did you think of his game overall today? It wasn't noticeable.
Making 1 or 2 nice plays doesn't make up for the number of plays that you also didn't make. He's continuing to struggle. I want to go back. I mean, this is something to go back in the off season when we have a long off season. I was at the stadium when he was playing well. I know we don't even want to think about the off season right now, but when he was playing well, I was there at the Denver game, and he was playing well until he got hurt. When he hurt his leg, and I'm just like, what happened to? Was it the fact that he came back and was finally starting to play well when that's when he got hurt? Is he hesitant to not go 100% out of fear of injury? Because when he finally did this year, he had to leave the game. I don't know. Does he just have the yips, or is it that he's just not that good? Is it that he's a linebacker that's undersized and completely reliant on speed, and he doesn't have his speed right now? Is that what it is? I don't know if he'll ever regain it, or but I know he definitely doesn't have it right now. So is that what's going on with Bush? I don't know. I'm not saying he's a lost cause, but if he's not going to have speed, he's not going to be what he was.
Yeah, no, and we've as Steelers fans, we all know what happened with Kendra Bell. I know some people have already started to compare him to that situation, so that's hopefully he can avoid that and get back on the field. But we have another super chat here from Sean S. Puts $10 in the tip jar. Says Presley Harvin gave the Vikings 2 cheap field goals to start the third with some pretty poor punts. Adams should be starting nose tackle. G's Boss missed field goal hurt. Deontay needs to fight through the passes. And can we please start a GoFundMe for a brand new offensive coordinator? First, I'll jump in here on the OC thing, and we can chat about that a little bit, Dave. But I know a lot of Steelers fans don't like Matt Canada. I know a lot of fans will also jump on the offensive coordinator. It doesn't matter who the OC is. It'd be Todd Haley or Ken Wisenhunt or Randy Fichtner, but I think everyone disliked Randy Fichtner. But
Vince Lombardi, no, he would be an offensive coordinator. Say Newt Rockney.
Yeah, no, like the OC just gets the finger pointed at him.
Yeah.
The Steelers' offense is still not that talented. Like they have some decent skill positions. They got some immature receivers. Juju's out. Like their veteran has been banged up all year. The O-line's been porous. Ben's not old Ben. It's so hard to just say like get rid of this guy now, because I don't know if we've seen the best of what we can get from him, because he hasn't had a whole lot of talent. I don't think it'd be fair to move on from like an offense coordinator that quickly. Would you agree on that, Dave?
Yeah, do you really want to pull a Browns and fire your head coach after one season before you give him a chance? I'm trying to remember even who was the guy that they fired after one season when they lost to the Steelers in week 17.
Pettin?
I can't something like that.
Freddie Kitchen? No, Kitchen was longer.
No, I'm not even talking about not Kitchens. He was, but I mean, sometimes you just give up on something too quick, and that's not what you want to do. There are so many. You could look at the last 20 minutes of this game and see so much to be positive and so excited about this Pittsburgh Steelers team. But you can't do it because you also have to look at the first 40 minutes. And when you look at the first 40 minutes, that's when I would say there were so many problems and so many holes. I can't even pin it on one specific thing. You know, it's you want to lay it on the feet of the coordinator. I'm not saying that. You want to lay it on the feet of the offensive line coach. I'm not saying that. You want to lay it on the feet of the inexperienced players. There's so much. And it's probably a combination of a lot of different things. I don't think people just think that there's bench Devin Bush. Well, if you don't have any option, do you really want to play Marcus Allen the whole time? You saw what that was tonight. I mean, that's the thing. Sometimes you just have to go with what you have, because even though it's not good, it's still better than the alternative. So there's just so many questions.
Yeah. Well, you kind of mentioned it a little bit in here. Where would you lay the loss at the feet of whom? Could it be positions or talent? Could it be any coach in particular, any player in particular, or a group? Would you lay this at the feet of effort, or what would you blame
effort
today on? Yeah.
I would lay it at the feet at coming out and being ready to play a game. And if you want to say the coaches didn't have them ready, I can't say that you're wrong. If you can't say the players weren't ready, I would say it's a combination of everyone and the effort when you hit the ground run. I mean, you got them to miss the opening field goal. You get the ball, you go down, and then you miss the field goal. You know, from both teams were even at that point. It's like you're starting the game over. And it's just one team went in one direction and one went the other. It's like they weren't ready to go out there and lay it all on the line. I think that's the best way to put it. When are you willing to lay it all on the line? Are you playing the first half like you just don't want to screw up? Or are you going to lay it all on the line? Because when the Steelers had to lay it all on the line the last 20 minutes, we saw what was almost an absolute epic comeback. Why aren't you laying it all on the line to start? Okay. Everybody, coaches saying, hey, let's lay it all on the line to start. Players going out there and being ready to lay it all on the line at the beginning. That's on everybody, in my opinion.
So let's just say the Steelers do make that field goal early on in the game. They're up 3-0 first quarter with about, I want to say it was like 7 minutes, about half the first quarter to go. Would that change anything which proceeded to happen after that play? Would 3 points be enough to kind of wake the team up, do you think? Or is that just kind of a play that might have affected the final score rather than what we saw like the next couple series.
Sometimes you just might feel like it's your night or it's not your night. And maybe if they get that field goal, they start to feel like it's their night. That shouldn't make that big of a difference. It shouldn't. But I can't say that it didn't, especially when they came out and stunk it up for so long after that happened.
Losing sucks.
Yeah, it really does. But honestly, the whole time when the Steelers are making that furious comeback, they're coming here. I'm like, this team does not deserve to win this game. This team does not deserve to win this game. It would be so fantastic if they could pull Ravens and win a game that they had no business winning. And they almost did. But I'm like, they got outplayed for so much of this game. But I just want to see those last 20 minutes for 60 minutes. That's what I want. Except take away the long touchdown pass they gave up. We'll get rid of that one.
So we got a couple.
Yeah, shut our eyes on that one.
Oh, goodness me. We got a couple minutes left. Jeffrey Benedict swears. He's been saying this all year long on Know Your Enemy. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to find a way to end up this year 500.
Yeah.
They're a 2-2 record away from finishing 8-1. And after the first odd game schedule, I think maybe ever in NFL history, the Steelers could find another way to go 500. Do you think it happens? Because Jeffrey Benedict certainly thinks it will.
Well, that means they got to win 2 of their last 4 games. And honestly, they might not even win 2 of their last 4 games. Hey, so that, I could completely see that, though. That would, honestly, that would kind of exemplify what this team has been so far this year. It's what they deserve. It really is right now. If you were to tell me right now, based on the first, why am I throwing off what it is? It's 13 games right now, right? Because it's not 12. Because they got to me, they're going into the last quarter right now. Because I've always did it in 4 games.
Yeah,
that extra game's thrown off. So they're going into the last quarter. Who this team is so far this season is a 500 team. But what you see, and that's what tonight did to us. Tonight, for 2/3 of the game, we're like, this is Cincinnati all over again. This is Cincinnati all over again.
It's worse.
If not, or worse. But then those last 20 minutes, and you see what this team is capable of. I'm like, and I've been saying all along, I don't want this team playing great at the beginning of the season. I want them playing good enough at the beginning of the season to where they can actually be playing well at the end of the season when it matters. But they have to play good enough early in the season to where they can get in at the end of the season playing well. So right now, I feel the Steelers are in a great situation to where they could make a run. I just don't know that if they're good enough to do it. They are in a situation that if you're like, hey, if you win your last 4 games, you're probably going to make the playoffs. Okay. All they got to do is go out on a run, win their last 4 and roll into the postseason. If you told me that at the beginning of the season to say, hey, the Steelers will be 500 going into the last 4 games, and all they have to do is get on a roll and win those last 4 and get into the postseason, I'd say, you know what, that'd be nice. You don't want you to have last year where you're already set up so much and you're falling apart and you're just still hoping to make it in by winning one of your last 5. So they're not in a position to where it's done. This is where you could get one of those, maybe the last 20 minutes of this game was the start of what was going to be great. Last week should have been the start of what was going to be great. You had a chance for that to be it. And then you kind of let it down. I mean, how long, I'm sorry if I'm going off for a little bit here, but how long did you have to listen to Troy Aikman and Joe Buck trying to talk about like Dallas, Washington coming up in the 3rd quarter? They had nothing to talk about with this game because it was so ridiculous. And then they kind of started to get excited about it again already because next thing you know, it's a game. But it just wasn't for so long. And this was the chance to show that this was the team was going to start rolling after beating the Ravens, and they didn't. So now you got to see if you can build on your last 20 minutes because that's about all you can take out of this game.
Oh, exactly. At least there is something to build on. One more super chat here, and we'll get into our closing thoughts. Occam's Ox puts $1.99 in tip jar. Says 22nd overall on offense, 22nd overall on defense.
Yeah.
We're delusional. I don't know if that's the exact stat. I'll trust you for it. But that's certainly.
I can tell you what they were going into the game if you let me grab it real quick. Well, no, go ahead.
Yeah, no, obviously the Steelers need help on offense. They need help on defense. If they're going to be competing
Those
for
are
a Super
correct.
Bowl next year, yeah, good job, Occams. But if they're competing for a Super Bowl next year, they're certainly going to need a decent amount of help on both sides of the football.
Yeah.
So, Dave, closing thoughts as we wrap things up here.
The Steelers needed this game tonight to have one game margin of error, in my opinion. That if they won this game tonight, I mean, they had to win last week in a divisional game. If they would have won this game tonight, then they could have been fine going 3-1 over the last 4 if they wanted to go in the postseason. What they lost was any margin of error. And to me, another loss ends their season. And that might be who this team is. But and when you looked at the first 40 minutes of this game, this was not a playoff team. It's not a playoff team. It's play like those first 40 minutes is why you have the 22nd ranked offense and the 22nd ranked defense. And you say, well, looking at that, you'd think they'd be 32nd. Well, the only reason they're not 32nd is then they turn around and play for 20 minutes at the end of the game. That's why they're ranked down there low. But it doesn't matter that you're ranked there low. If you start playing the whole time, if you want a glimmer of hope, the glimmer of hope is you see what the team is capable of. They just have to do it every game, every quarter from this point on, or else we are talking about, the draft in April, because there's nothing else to do. That's where they are. At least they didn't roll over and die. They fought back. They almost took it to overtime. They came up short. You get 10 days off. This is your regroup time. Regroup. You either got to come out and, I'm going to mess up Tomlin's quote. What's his quote about December?
We raise hell in December.
Yeah. Unleash hell. That's what it is. Unleash hell in December. Okay. That's what they have to do right now after this time off. I'm not saying that I expect it, but I'm not saying that it's impossible either. That's why we're going to tune in next Sunday against Tennessee and see what happens.
Yep. Hey, and as we wind down the show here, I think it's also a good time to remind you to click over behindthesteelcurtain.com. You're going to get great wrap up on this game, from game grades to knee-jerk reactions, what have you, will be available on the website, including some film room breakdowns throughout the week. I'm sure Dave and Jeffrey Benedict will get us a decent little Vertex, one of the more fun articles that pop up on BTSC. And also make sure you're listening to the entire family of podcasts from behindthesteelcurtain.com. If you're only watching on YouTube and Facebook, you're only getting like a third of the story. Yeah. So, hey, wherever you get your podcasts, search Steelers. Or
lots of good stuff out there on the podcast channel.
Hey, from social media shows to Jeffrey Benedict's Cutting Room Floor to Let's Ride to Dave Schofield's Stat Geek, there are tons of shows for you. If you love the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure you're liking, subscribing, 5 stars, what have you, to support the program. And once again, I think it's our 3rd consecutive month of being the #1 podcast network across all of SB Nation. So thank you to our loyal listeners for that. Before we sign things off here, Dave, am I missing anything?
No, I mean, I would like you to give a final thought as you go. I mean, yeah. This team isn't lost. They have to find it. They have to keep it the whole game.
Yeah, I think for me, what the final thought here is, they have 4 games left to really send off Ben Wright or to fold your tent. And really the next 4 weeks are going to determine probably what the next 6 months looks like in terms of Pittsburgh Steelers football. This is a huge stretch for this team. This year is not done by any stretch of the imaginations. Could they squeak into the playoffs? It's possible. Could they fall flat on their face and decide to pull the ripcord and try to completely not gut this team necessarily, but go in a completely different direction? Also possible. These are a big 4 weeks and will really impact the future of this team for the next decade plus. Really, it's going to be a very big off season. So I guess with all that being said, you can continue the conversation with Dave Schofield and myself on Twitter. Dave's handle is at STLR Superfandad. That would be a Steeler without the E's. My handle is at Michael Beck 56, and you can always follow BehindTheSteelCurtain.com at BT Steel Curtain. So with all that being said, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of the Postgame Show. We'll catch you in about 10 days now when the Steelers take on the Tennessee Titans. So on behalf of Dave Schofield, my name is Michael Beck. Thank you for tuning in.